Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, April 27. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Progress in beating COVID-19 is often measured in numbers, but tonight it's being measured in something we've all carried with us every day for more than a year: our masks. The CDC says wearing one outdoors is no longer needed as long as you're vaccinated and not in a large group.
The bottom line is clear. If you're vaccinated, you can do more things more safely, both outdoors as well as indoors. So for those who haven't gotten their vaccination yet, especially if you're younger or think you don't need it, this is another great reason to go get vaccinated. Now.
And that's President Joe Biden urging people to get their shots. The easing of mask use in outdoor settings is happening because of our rising vaccination rates. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman has more on the new guidance.
Over the past year, we have spent a lot of time telling Americans what they cannot do, what they should not do.
But now federal health officials are telling those who are fully vaccinated what they can do.
Generally, for vaccinated people, outdoor activities without a mask are safe.
CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky says masks will still be required for vaccinated people when indoors. That includes places like barbershops, restaurants, and when taking public transportation.
There's increasing data that suggests that most of transmission is happening indoors rather than outdoors.
She says the move was made in part due to low case rates and high vaccination rates, adding that more than 1 in 3 American adults are now vaccinated.
That when those vaccinations continue to soar and the cases plummet, that we should be in good shape.
California had a mask mandate, but Governor Gavin Newsom says his team is working to align it with these new CDC guidelines.
I think it is important to give people an incentive because the studies show that the vaccines are protective against infection, and they're also protective against dying from COVID.
Dr. Abby Olulade with Sharp Reese Steely says while relaxing of restrictions is certainly good news and evidence-based, she's worried that some may hear this and let their guard down too much.
Outdoor transmission risk is quite low, but I'm also worried because the risk is not zero.
She also says federal regulators need to be able to toggle back should infections spike, keeping in mind that while demand for vaccinations is high, we still are not at herd immunity.
Herd immunity ultimately is not up to the CDC. It's not up to the FDA. It is ultimately up to us.
Now all San Diego County sponsored vaccination sites are taking walk-ups, setting aside doses each day for those unable to get appointments. Officials are still warning those vaccinated against being maskless inside large crowds. The CDC has posted a list online detailing what activities are okay for vaccinated people and what to avoid for those still looking for shots. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
A reminder, the single-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine is an option again here in San Diego County. The state gave the green light to resume use over the weekend. The vaccine was on hold for a couple of weeks after a handful of cases of people developing blood clots. More than 8 million people have received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and after a review, the CDC found the benefits of the vaccine outweigh the risk. The KPBS News vaccine tracker shows 50% of all eligible San Diegans have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. That's nearly 1.5 million people. You can follow the progress and find a vaccine location close to you at kpbs.org just by clicking the vaccines link on our homepage. Now that the recall is moving forward, Governor Gavin Newsom is trying to link the effort to extreme right-wing politics. The governor shared this ad from a committee that's fighting the recall. It claims anti-vaccine and violent groups like the Proud Boys are among the recall backers. Today on KPBS Midday Edition, UCSD political scientist Thad Kusser talked about Newsom's strategy going forward.
No major Democrat has yet stepped in, and I think that's unlikely to happen. And part of that is because Gavin Newsom and his allies are making sure that everyone, endorses him in the recall, fights against the recall, and doesn't hop into this replacement race and give voters a Democratic alternative. Gavin Newsom wants to say, hey, it's me or a Donald Trump Republican.
You can hear more of that conversation on the KPBS Midday Edition podcast. A date for the recall election has not been announced, but it will likely be in early fall. After a batch of census results were released Monday, California is set to lose a congressional seat this year. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler tells us why local census organizers were concerned something like this would happen.
Last year's census was conducted in the face of a global pandemic and uncertainty surrounding a possible citizenship question. Census organizers in City Heights had to put aside years of planning and instead start from scratch, finding ways to reach community members who might have been reticent to get counted, either on account of the pandemic or the anti-immigrant rhetoric stemming from the White House. They have mixed feelings about the results. Brenda Diaz is the civic engagement coordinator at Mid-City CAN, which spearheaded efforts in City Heights.
It's definitely not accurate, but I think it's as accurate as, it's going to get, with the manpower, with the resources, and, with the outreach that we were able to do.
With California's population still growing, the loss of a congressional seat means further diluting political power, something that will impact immigrant neighborhoods like City Heights, which relies on federal support for schools, hospitals, and other services.
There's not enough money coming into our communities. There's not enough people advocating for, communities like City Heights. And so that just means, that we're gonna, we have a lot of work ahead.
New York State also lost a congressional seat this cycle by a margin of 89 people. Diaz says this underscores how planning for the next census needs to be an ongoing process.
This process can't begin a year before or even 2 years before. It needs to, start at least 3 to 5 years out. We need to make sure that, the people that are going to be doing the work understand what's at stake, and that, sooner rather than later, we begin with the messaging, right? And that it's as accurate as possible, and that it's inclusive as possible.
Census block data showing how San Diego fared at the neighborhood level is set to be released this September. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
Immigration advocates have been calling on President Joe Biden to provide universal legal representation to those facing removal proceedings. But as KPBS racial justice and equity reporter Christina Kim tells us, San Diego County doesn't have to wait for the federal government to act.
County Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer wants San Diego to become the first border county to provide legal counsel to immigrants facing deportation.
That everyone in this nation, whether you're a citizen or not, has an established right under the U.S. Constitution to be represented by legal counsel. Today, we are launching a movement to ensure immigrants facing deportation have a fair day in court.
Lawson-Remer says the proposed program will help alleviate the current backlog of over 1 million cases waiting to be heard nationwide. Michael Garcia, chief deputy at the Office of the Public Defender, whose office would oversee the program, believes streamlining the court process also makes fiscal sense.
As a border community, we have a responsibility to make certain that justice prevails in our adversarial immigration courts. It's the socially moral thing to do, and at the same time, it's economically prudent for our businesses and our tax base.
Immigrants with legal counsel are 10 times more likely to avoid deportation than those with no legal representation, according to a 2015 study. It's something Mustafa Hassan, a refugee from Ethiopia who was formerly detained at the Otay Mesa Detention Center, knows all too well. He was able to get legal help from the Partnership for the Advancement of New Americans.
Through that attorney and that help and that guidance, that's how I get my case succeeded. That's how I get my green card now, and I mean residential, card. And now I'm, working and I'm in a good condition.
The supervisors will vote on whether to proceed with the proposal on May 4th. If it advances, the board will review it again during budget hearings in late June. Christina Kim, KPBS News.
Many of those who have arrived in the U.S. in recent weeks are getting help in Riverside County. Coming up a bit later, we'll take you north of San Diego to see what's being done for these families and how nonprofits are trying to keep up with the demand. Escondido police have released the name of the man killed in last week's police shooting and the name of the officer who shot him. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer looks into the new details.
The Escondido Police Department says 59-year-old Stephen Olson had been hitting cars with a 2-foot-long crowbar near the intersection of Broadway and 2nd Avenue when Officer Chad Moore approached him shortly after 7 a.m. on April 21st. After the officer gave Olson multiple commands to drop the tool, the department said Olson continued to advance towards the officer, who was backing away. Olson was ultimately shot and killed by Officer Moore. Police video of the incident still hasn't been released. In a Monday news release, the Escondido Police Department said it is anticipated that a critical incident video, which will include body-worn camera footage of the incident, will be released later this week. Escondido police say they were aware Olson was living on the streets and he had previously been booked into county jail nearly 200 times since 2002, as well as being involved in more than 20 service calls this year. Andrea Felix's grandfather was friends with Olson. She said Olson struggled with his cognitive abilities and mental health, but he was not a threatening presence.
Steve was never aggressive, at least in front of me. He's never been aggressive, and to me, he was harmless. The only thing I could say is Steve was not able to cognitively put together or articulate a complete sentence. It was very apparent that you knew that he was mentally disabled or he had some type of mental illness.
Greg Angel of Interfaith Services says the current system of having police officers address individuals in mental health crises is a broken one.
When somebody's in a mental health crisis and they're experiencing homelessness, often police are the only response a community has in the moment. And it's not fair to law enforcement, and it's also not fair to the individuals in crisis to have that be the only option. We really need mental health professionals to also be there.
A protest over the shooting is planned for 5 p.m. tomorrow at Escondido City Hall. Felix says she plans to attend. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Tens of millions of dollars are still available for San Diegans struggling to pay rent, but many who need help the most are not applying for it, especially members of the Latinx community. KPBS reporter John Carroll reports tonight on the tremendous outreach effort to keep families from being evicted.
Thanks to federal and state COVID relief programs, the San Diego Housing Commission has a lot of money available to help people struggling to pay rent, about $83 million.
To provide past due rent, past due utilities, and upcoming rental assistance.
Azucena Valladolid is the Vice President of Rental Assistance for the San Diego Housing Commission. She's very much aware of stats like this. Latinx people make up 57% of all renters in California, but only 35% have applied for rental assistance statewide.
We are still looking at ways to improve the number of applications that we're receiving, specifically from the Latino community.
Valladolid says the Housing Commission is leaving no stone unturned with targeted outreach to the community.
Advertisements in English and in Spanish on both TV and radio, advertisements in Spanish community newspapers, Spanish postcards to 170,000 households throughout the city of San Diego, Spanish inserts in both the City Public Utilities Department and SDG&E utility bills, posted advertisements on the MTS system. We've even contracted with several community-based organizations.
One of those community organizations is the Chicano Federation. Nancy Maldonado is its president and CEO. I asked her what's behind the hesitancy among many in the Latinx community to ask for rental assistance.
Fear and mistrust is one concern, but I think there's a variety of factors at play.
Maldonado says plenty of renters in the community owe money, but many don't owe it to their landlord.
They either borrowed from friends and family or took out a loan or figured out a different way to come up with the money and pay their rent.
But Maldonado says the Chicano Federation still wants to help in any way they can.
Por favor de llamar a Chicano Federation. Aquí estamos para ayudarle, para poder Si tienen algunas preguntas, aquí estamos para asistirlos y para servirlos. Si tienen algunas preguntas, por favor, llame a Chicano Federation para que podamos ayudarles.
You can also find help by going to covidassistance.sdhc.org. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Covered California says the deadline to enroll for health insurance is coming up quickly. The American Rescue Plan, recently passed by Congress, expands eligibility to more than 2 million Californians. Covered California Executive Director Peter Lee says current enrollees will see lower premiums starting in May.
COVID pandemic has had huge health effects, but also huge economic effects. The communities hardest hit economically, communities of color, low-income communities. Those are exactly the communities targeted by the American Rescue Plan.
The special enrollment period ends this Friday, April 30th, to have coverage by May 1st. It can be difficult for service members to find a new purpose following their careers in the military. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne talks to a local veteran who got support from a charity that helped him put his talents to work.
Mike Andela spent 16 years in the Marine Corps, including tours to the Middle East as part of an explosive ordnance disposal unit. He suffered multiple injuries from explosives.
And I had an IED behind me go off. It was about 110 pounds of explosives, and I was probably about 10 yards away from that on foot. And that hurt really bad as well.
But a final concussion in 2016 is what forced Andela to go home, eventually taking a medical retirement in 2018.
I left Kuwait and Iraq that year. I left pretty angry, pretty just defeated. It's like you took away, one of my main purposes for living.
Andela had to find a new purpose for life, but didn't know where to start.
People look at you as, they look at you as like being Superman, what you do, how you do it. And then when you don't have that anymore, it's tough to pull yourself out of that.
Andela's injuries gave him intense migraines and disorientation, preventing him from dedicating 40 hours a week to an employer.
I was, just scared of, how am I going to provide for my family? Because Marine Corps retirement does not, it doesn't pay all the bills. So it's not like everybody thinks you're going to get out, you're retired, and everything is going to be fine.
This situation, often faced by retiring service members, is what Semper Fi in America's Fund focuses on.
So we see a lot of veterans that are searching for something tangible, something that's purpose-filled for their life, and tools that they can use to help in their recovery. So
Casey Fisher manages some of the apprenticeship programs that Semper Fi in America's Fund offers to help service members find a new purpose after service. And it's what helped Andela find a new purpose after his career in the Marine Corps.
He's incredibly gifted if you've seen any of his work, but he was looking for something he could pour that talent into that could make him a little bit of money and give him a purpose to serve the community.
That's where the idea for Coastal Sign Company grew. It's not just a sign company, it's also a workshop Andela operates with his wife out of their garage, where customers can come in and make their own rustic crafts.
My wife actually came up with the idea for Coastal Sign Company, and it is being a workshop, not just something that we sell, and where people will come to a workshop and they start out with a pile of wood like you see here, and they end up with their very own, something that they created, something that they personalized, made, and painted and bring it home.
The fund helped Andela with all of the details on forming the business, as well as some funding.
They will tailor your business plan around what you want and what you can, what you want to see your business doing.
Funding for Semper Fi in America's Fund comes mainly from one-off donations and some grants. They have helped over 30,000 families nationwide. Their mission? To support the wounded, ill, or injured veterans and their families in all military branches.
We have programs that range from an athletic program where you can play golf, learn how to ride a bike. We have a horse program where we train service members to ride horses and even get to a point where they do cattle drives. It's one of our greatest programs. And then the program that I'm in, where we will help veterans in navigating what it is they want to do after the military. So
Semper Fi in America's Fund will be having a virtual auction of products from the fund's programs now through May 3rd. All proceeds will go to benefit programs helping veterans from the fund. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
The Padres road trip continues tonight in Arizona after the Friars took 3 out of 4 in LA. The Padres are now 2.5 back of the Dodgers and Giants, and who are tied for first. Chris Paddock will start tonight's game, which is the first of 2 before the team returns to San Diego this weekend. Well, back here at home, the weather is changing again to the warmer side. Mark Mancuso has your forecast.
Our weather will be improving over the next couple of days, and we have quite the warm-up coming here for the end of the week. Interior sections, we may be rivaling some record-high temperatures. Then over the weekend, we should see another one of these troughs approaching. What it will do is bring the flow back onshore, and it'll start to cool off. Interior sections probably holding off till about Sunday. All right, here we go. Tonight, we're clearing out. Temperatures dropping down to about 55 degrees in the metro area, down to 46 in Oceanside. Ramona cools down to 40. Mount Laguna down to 37, and Campos 39. For tomorrow, well, the system is pulling away from us. Temperatures will start to rise. We'll have a lot of sunshine. We'll have a gusty wind coming in from the north. And here you can see our temperatures with the sunshine up to 71 in Oceanside and San Diego. El Cajon hits 80, Ramona 76. Borrego Springs is up to 90, and Campo is at 73. What a day. Now on Thursday, ridge of high pressure is building and it starts to get hot. Now, those temperatures will be quite warm, especially in the interior sections. We'll be warming up along the coast. Temperatures getting up to 80 Friday. Then notice the cooling coming over the weekend with more clouds around. Inland, sunshine and very warm. Look at Friday, 92. Temperatures back off over the weekend. And as we take you into the mountains, even here, it's warming up to 70 Saturday, then cooling off Sunday. And the deserts, well, it's going to be hot. Look at these temperatures, triple digits Friday and Saturday. Here comes the cooling on Sunday. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
In recent weeks, we've seen hundreds of migrants arrive in San Diego and elsewhere along the border. Some of them are ending up a couple of hours to our north, where outreach groups are doing what they can to help. Carolina Villegas got a behind-the-scenes tour with one of those nonprofits.
Inside a small shelter in the eastern Coachella Valley, they're in a race against time.
We want to be ready ahead of time and prepare cots. People sleep in this type of cots.
Claudia Castorena is the founder and CFO of Galilee Center. She's helping prepare their community room to house a bus full of asylum seekers recently released by immigration authorities.
Right now we're expecting 17 people from Murrieta, and they're going to be here in the next 20-25 minutes. And then another bus from Yuma, 35 people.
The buses come from nearby border towns. Those that test positive for COVID-19 are taken to hotels. Galilee Center provides them with food and clothing during their quarantine. Those that test negative are brought here.
They receive every day a clean pillowcase, a clean towel, and everybody gets this.
For Claudia, who came to this country as an undocumented immigrant, she says she's doing God's work, but not even a prophet could have prepared her for the latest immigrant surge.
In the 30 years that providing, social service and human services in the Coachella Valley, I never seen it this way.
Last year, Galilee Center received a total of 125 migrants.
Adelante.
Since March, they've been getting that many every 2 or 3 days. Exhausted, they stumble into the shelter with ankle monitors after being released by immigration authorities, capping off weeks on the road.
Bienvenidos.
Welcome to all of you. This is a Catholic shelter. We have no relation with immigration authorities. Claudia has hired 18 new people in the last few weeks, but it hasn't been enough. So she's running around helping Gabriela, a 21-year-old migrant, shower and get clothes. Gabriela says coming with her 2-year-old daughter was risky, but staying in Ecuador under the abuse of a relative was riskier. It was a hard decision. Coming with my daughter was hard because sometimes we had nothing to eat, nothing to drink, and she would ask for water or food, and I had nothing to give her. One of the things that shocked her the most from the week-long journey was the number of people trying to come to the U.S. There were a lot of people, a lot of migrants trying to get here. The ticket system for the bus had collapsed from all the people. Gabriela and the migrants will be here in less than 24 hours, just long enough to shower, wash their clothes, eat, sleep, and book the last leg of their trip. Hours later, a new set of buses will arrive to start the process all over again.
We're helping little by little, and even if it's one family at a time, that gives me a certain way of comforting, knowing that we made a difference for one family.
Families that have come in search of a better life.
That was Catalina Villegas reporting. We have a programming note for tomorrow night. KPBS will have live coverage of President Biden's speech to Congress. This will be the first time the president has addressed a joint session since taking office in January. PBS NewsHour will begin its live coverage at 6 p.m. and we will also carry the speech live on KPBS FM. And you can stream it on our homepage, kpbs.org. We'll also have the Republican response and analysis following both speeches. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.